Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are stepping directly into the cockpit of corporate strategy, specifically for you, the business developers out there navigating these enormous high-stakes enterprise deals. The margins are just so thin, the competition is fierce, and, the difference between winning a profitable deal and winning a contract that, well, actively costs you money, it's just razor sharp.
It's the moment of truth for the entire organization, isn't it? Because if your price is too high, all that time, all that energy, the resource investment in the pitch, it just evaporates instantly.
Right.
But if your price is too low, you essentially trade future profitability for, a moment of celebratory victory. It's an incredibly difficult line to walk.
And what makes this whole dilemma just unavoidable is the sheer dominance of price. Let's start with a foundational data point here. The 2021 Demand Gen report confirmed, and this is definitive, that when decision makers are signing a contract, price is the single top consideration.
Yeah, and it wasn't even close.
Not at all. It didn't just edge out factors like features or quality. It exceeded all other factors combined by more than 20%.
That statistic is a mandate, really. It tells you that every business development professional has to approach pricing not as some kind of art, but as a rigorous science. For these big contracts, just, relying on historical costs or simple cost-plus models, that just guarantees you're going to get a suboptimal result.
Absolutely. And that is exactly why we're diving deep into the methodology built specifically to solve this problem. It's called Price to Win, or PTW.
You might also hear it called strategic pricing or price optimization. Same idea.
Our mission today is to analyze exactly how PTW works, and more importantly, to identify the critical, the non-obvious steps where you, the business developer, provide the essential intelligence that makes that winning price even possible.
We need to understand the framework, the math, and the intelligence engine. You need to find that intersection point, that optimal price that maximizes profit for your company, while at the same time maximizing the perceived value for the customer, all against the backdrop of your toughest competitor.
Okay, so let's unpack that core framework. We talk a lot about profit maximization, but the real insight behind PTW is that we have to look outward first, right?
Exactly. It forces us to acknowledge that in a competitive market, value isn't just subjective. As Dr. Thomas Nagel, who was a real pioneer in this field, put it, competitive advantage is the only sustainable source of profitability. Your prospect's perception of what a reasonable price is depends entirely on what your competition is offering and what they're charging.
So we're intentionally pricing based on competitor value, not just our own internal profitability goal.
Yeah.
But wait a minute. If we use the competitor's price as the foundation, aren't we just guaranteeing a race to the bottom? Where's the strategic room to move?
That's the brilliance of the framework. We only use the competitor's price as a reference point. The PTW method then builds up what's called the total economic value, or TEV, based on three fundamental components.
Okay.
These three components, they define the core PTW formula.
Okay, so lay the formula out for us clearly.
The core formula is this. PTW equals reference value, plus positive differentiation value, minus negative differentiation value.
All right, let's nail down those definitions, starting at that foundation. Reference value.
Okay, so reference value, or RV, that's your starting point. It's the price charged by your top competitor for their closest comparable product. It sets the market reality.
Okay.
Then, positive differentiation value, or PDV, is the dollar value a prospect places on your unique value proposition. What you offer that the competitor doesn't, that actually benefits the customer.
And the last one, the negative value.
Right. Negative differentiation value, or NDV, that's the penalty. It's the dollar value assigned to any perceived deficiency or, a feature gap your product has compared to whatever the competitor is offering.
So we start with the competitor's price, add the extra value we bring, and then subtract the penalties for our shortcomings. It sounds simple in concept, but making those three values concrete and financially measurable, that's the real challenge.
It is.
And that's where the business developer shifts from, say, a relationship manager to more of a strategic intelligence officer.
Precisely. The BD team is the absolute linchpin here. You are the intelligence engine that feeds this machine, especially when it comes to those highly qualitative inputs of PDV, RV, and NDV.
Okay, let's focus on that BD role. We know the sales team is the one to crystallize the value in the final proposal, but the BD team has already done the heavy lifting, especially with PDV, way earlier in the activation phase.
That's so important. If the business developer hasn't successfully activated the prospect's positive perception of your unique value proposition, I mean, if they haven't framed why your gold-plated solution is worth more, then it doesn't matter how perfectly you calculate the price. The customer just won't buy the value prop. BD has to set that narrative early.
And where BD really drives the numbers for PTW is in calculating those competitive inputs, RV and NDV. This requires serious competitive analysis. So what are the practical steps BD has to take to get this intelligence?
It starts with defining the battlefield. Step 1 is identifying the incumbent. You have to know who currently has the contract or who the top competitor is in your customer's mind. Sure, research public comments and social media, but the most effective strategy, just talk to the customer.
But how do you talk to the customer to get that kind of intelligence without, giving away your own strategy?
You focus on their pains and gains with the incumbent. You don't ask, so what's their price? You ask, if you could change 3 things about your current solution, what would they be?
Oh, interesting.
Or, what was the biggest unexpected cost you had last year because of a limitation in your current system? This starts to reveal their subjective view of NDV, and it helps you frame your own PDV.
That immediately gets us closer to quantifying that negative differentiation value. Okay, what's step 2?
Identifying the competitive field. You have to know who else is bidding. You monitor events like industry days or what they call advanced planning briefings to industry APBIs. The prospect hosts these to go over requirements. The attendee list often tells you exactly who your major contenders are.
Now, step 3 is the hardest part. Determining that reference value price. I mean, competitors are masters at keeping their prices secret, especially for these big tailored deals. How do we estimate RV if they won't publish it?
You have to get forensic. Reviewing publicly disclosed transactions is helpful, but for deals with government entities, BD needs to know how to use a really powerful strategic tool, the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA.
The Freedom of Information Act. That sounds like a legal weapon, not a sales tool. How do our listeners actually use that in a normal BD cycle without tipping off the competition?
Well, it is a strategic tool, especially in government contracting. It allows your BD team to request previous RFPs and detailed contract award data directly from government customers. That request can reveal the incumbent's prior pricing, specific contract line items, maybe even their proposed labor rates from past successful bids. It gives you hard, actionable data points for the RV.
That is massive leverage. Okay, but what if that price data still isn't publicly available?
Then you turn to cost benchmarking data. We aren't talking about stealing proprietary blueprints here. We're talking about finding out the industry average costs for common components. For example, what's the average fully burdened hourly rate for a Tier 3 developer in, say, Dallas?
Right, or a standard material cost.
Exactly. You use this benchmark data to build a highly educated estimate of the competitor's total product costs, and it gives you a solid, defensible estimate for the reference value.
So BD drives the qualitative inputs for PDV and the hard competitive numbers for RV and NDV. Now we get to the final step, quantifying that differentiation using our own internal cost structures. This is where the math really starts to work for us.
Right, so we use 2 critical internal estimates. First is the basis of estimate, or BOE. Think of the BOE as your internal cost to produce the minimum viable product, the check-the-box solution that just meets the prospect's stated requirements. It's your cost floor.
And the second is the top-level estimate, the TLE, which you called the gold-plated estimate.
Correct. The TLE is the total cost required to exceed the requirements and fully deliver on your unique value proposition,
Yeah.
the aspirational version. The difference between those 2 estimates instantly gives us the dollar value of our positive differentiation, our PDV.
So the PDV calculation is simply the top-level estimate minus the basis of estimate. That's the premium measured in our own cost investment that we are bringing to the table.
Exactly. But then we have to quantify the penalty, NDV. And since this is based on perceived deficiencies, it can be really subjective. To bring some financial rigor to it, we use a scoring methodology.
Walk us through that NDV scoring process step by step, because this feels like where a lot of companies could lose control of the calculation.
You have to be mercilessly honest. You list every single requirement the prospect cares about, features, benefits, performance, everything. Then for each one, you score your product's ability to meet it. 3 for high ability, 2 for medium, and 1 for low.
So you're basically grading yourself against a perfect score.
Yes. You sum up your total score achieved. Then you calculate the total perfect score, which is just the number of requirements multiplied by 3. The difference shows you the gap. The NDV percentage is calculated by taking 1 minus the ratio of your total score divided by the total perfect score.
Okay.
You then apply that resulting NDV percentage against your total offering cost, the top-level estimate, to get the final NDV dollar value.
That makes the penalty totally quantifiable. Let's immediately apply this to the specific numbers from our sources to make this really tangible for everyone listening. Imagine we're bidding on a new logistics system.
Okay, let's use our source numbers. Your corporation determines that your basis of estimate, your BOE, the minimum cost just to meet the requirements, is $7 million.
Our cost floor is $7 million.
Got it. Your aspirational top-level estimate, the TLE, the gold-plated solution, is $15 million.
Okay, calculation 1 is done right there. 15 million minus 7 million equals a PDV of $8 million. That's the dollar value of our positive differentiation. Now for the competitive intel.
Your BD team used FOIA and competitive analysis and determined that the incumbent, our top competitor, charges $10 million for their comparable solution. That's our reference value, our RV.
So we have RV at 10 million and PDV at 8 million. Now for that final NDV penalty calculation.
So assume the prospect had 32 critical logistics requirements. The total perfect score is 96. That's 3 times 32. However, our product has a known deficiency in one specific tracking module, so our total score is only 83.
So we plug that right into the NDV percentage formula.
Exactly. The NDV percentage is 1 minus 83 divided by 96. That ratio is about 0.87, so our NDV percentage is 13%, 0.13. We then apply that deficiency penalty against our top-level estimate of $15 million.
13% of 15 million is just under 2 million. Let's call it a $2 million NDV. That 2 million is the dollar penalty the customer thinks we deserve because we're missing that one feature.
Precisely. And now we calculate the final optimized price, RV 10 million plus PDV 8 million minus NDV 2 million.
Which results in the winning price, or PTW, of $16 million. $16 million is the highest price we can charge while ensuring we beat the competitor's perceived value and maximize our profit.
That is the power of turning competitive intelligence and internal costs into a mathematically optimized bid. But we have to reiterate that final warning from the comparative analysis. Never bid below your basis of estimate. That was $7 million in this example. Bidding below that floor, even if you win, guarantees quality issues, damages your brand, and destroys profitability. PTW gives you the ceiling. The BOE provides the floor.
This has been a really practical look at how the BD function transforms strategic pricing from a guessing game into a repeatable, profitable process. Let's quickly summarize the top 3 actionable takeaways for our listeners.
Number 1, the price mandate. You just can't ignore that 2021 demand gen report. Price is the dominant factor. PTW is the rigorous methodology that ensures your bid is optimally priced for both max margin and max chance of victory.
2, BD is the intelligence hub. Your function is solely responsible for generating those essential defensible inputs, especially the reference value, RV, and the negative differentiation value, NDV. That means proactive competitive intelligence, knowing how to use tools like FOIA, and using cost benchmarking data.
And finally, number 3, value is calculated. Your positive differentiation value, PDV, is not subjective wishful thinking. It is mathematically defined as the difference between your internal cost to deliver your gold-plated solution, your TLE, and the cost to just meet the minimum requirements, your BOE.
If you fail to do this strategic pricing process, you are guaranteed to either leave significant money on the table by underbidding, or you're going to waste vast resources by submitting a price that has, zero chance of winning. This deep dive helps mitigate that high-stakes risk.
Which brings us to a final provocative thought for you to consider. The last step in PTW requires you to constantly evaluate if your gold-plated estimate needs to be reduced if the competitor's total economic value is lower than your calculated PTW. This raises a crucial question for every BD professional out there. How often are you selling value, that $8 million PDV in our example, that the market or the prospect simply isn't willing to pay for? And what are you prepared to cut from that gold-plated estimate to ensure the bid stays winnable without sacrificing the core of what you do?
It's that constant reevaluation of worth versus cost, and it really defines strategic profitability. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into price to win. We hope this analysis helps you identify and nail that optimum price every single time.
Until the next deep dive.